You know when you're like working on something on your computer and you end up like getting sidetracked and you watch a random YouTube video and then you read the comments and they're just all like people arguing about how terrible Muslims are and how much they want certain people to die, and you just can't stop reading even though it's like one of the worst things you've ever read, and you kind of want to reply to somebody but you don't. Yeah. I hate that shit. Earlier tonight, I saw The Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, and I figured I would kind of make a review out of it, maybe make a habit out of making a review of a movie that I see, and more specifically when I see a movie where my opinion is kind of weird or unusual, or there's just certain aspects of the movie I want to talk about as opposed to talking about the movie as a whole. In this particular case, I do want to talk about The Gambler as a whole because I thought it was really great. There were a lot of aspects of it that I really loved, and the whole movie, I'm just sitting there, I was totally captivated, just totally drawn in. I loved the characters, I thought the story was pretty interesting, I thought the development, everything just paced really well. And then the movie ends, I was with Justin, and he was the first one to ask, what did you think? And I was like, I loved it. And then I was like, what did you think? And he's like, yeah, it was fine. I'm like, oh, interesting. And of course, I looked on Letterboxd.com, and people are not really liking this movie. And I don't know, I'm usually in like the majority opinion, so I just thought I would make just a quick thing to demonstrate what I really liked about The Gambler, bring some positivity to the argument. It's about a guy who is suffering from a gambling addiction, but he handles it in such a unique and bizarre way that is so intriguing. And the performance Mark Wahlberg gave was definitely a kind of a less is more performance, at least for me. Essentially, his addiction is so far gone, so extremely painfully far gone, that he has just kind of lost all empathy for other people, and he's lost all feeling to have drive in his life. And they really kind of drove that home for me. Like every scene, he's a college professor, is his day job, and every scene where he's teaching his class, he's very passionately speaking about these, about how he feels about his life, and his lectures kind of go off on a tangent into a very introspective ramble about his life, and whether he knows it or not, he's talking about himself and how fucked up his life is, and he can't get over it. And then that's in contrast to the rest of his life, which is so vacant and without emotion and without care that, I mean, there are parts where like his family gets in trouble because of his addiction, and he just doesn't. He's just so far gone that he just doesn't give a shit. And there are even parts where the people he owes money to will be like, we're gonna kill you, we're gonna torture you, we're gonna kill your family if you don't pay these debts. And his reaction is just so like, apathetic. It's just, I just thought that was so intriguing and so far gone that it kind of built to this nice breaking point. And at the end of the movie, where you're not sure if he's going to make a change and fix his life, or if he is. The entire movie, even up to that point, I had no idea what way he was going to go in. I just thought Mark Wahlberg really fucking nailed that performance. Of course, John Goodman is amazing. There were definitely parts where I thought he wasn't in it too much, but every scene that he was on screen, he just totally outshined Mark Wahlberg, who I also thought was amazing. But I think that's what I really loved about The Gambler. Check out this scripted review I have. It's only like a minute and a half or something, and if I'm not really being clear, then hopefully that'll clear it up for you. If the trailer looks interesting to you, go check it out. Hopefully you'll have a good time. While The Gambler doesn't present anything that will be remembered as some wonderful achievement in filmmaking, it is a well-crafted piece of work in its own right that I thoroughly enjoyed. Mark Wahlberg delivers a knockout, less-is-more performance playing Jim Bennett, a college professor with a seemingly masochistic addiction to gambling. Well, gambling and losing, more specifically. I was completely fascinated by his character and his painfully destructive tendencies. Bennett is so profoundly lost and apathetic to his place in the world that the entire way through the film I had no idea how the story was going to end. Will he redeem himself, or will he continue to let his addiction control his life? The best scenes in the movie for me were whenever Bennett would abandon his scheduled lectures for his class to unfairly pass judgment over and compare the lives and abilities of his students. They provided situations in which Bennett unwittingly looks inside of himself to potentially discover what's causing him to act so haphazardly. This builds an interesting stark contrast to the scenes outside of his job in which he abandons all intention of even making the slightest glimpse at who he could potentially become. The technical filmmaking aspects of The Gambler are all great, but they only really work to complement the development of our protagonist. The entire supporting cast is pretty good, save John Goodman, who is, of course, phenomenal, and a ton of fun to watch every second he's on screen. To me, this movie is nothing more than a character piece, but it succeeds in every right at accomplishing what it set out to be. Mark Wahlberg's portrayal of a man so blatantly apathetic to the course his life is taking is ironically intriguing and never once boring. At times I hated him, at times I found him a cool kind of offbeat, and at times I just plain wanted him to succeed. I'm a sucker for character piece-driven dramas, and I found nothing to dislike in The Gambler.
I told you that I'm not a gambler. I want a real love, a real thing to do every day, and I'd just rather die if I don't get it. Did I just say that out loud?
If I give you this money and you don't pay me back, there are no rules. You understand the gravity of your situation.
I know what I have to do. All or nothing, all the money down.